Paul Finn has over 2 decades of experience in the renewable energy sector, holding leadership positions in several companies focused on wind and solar energy, like Watts Wind Energy and until recently, Rayleigh Solar Tech. He's going to tell us about a flexible, lightweight, low-cost solar PV system that's redefining the traditional flat solar panel. I can't wait to hear about it. Welcome, Paul.
Good morning.
It's great to have you here on the podcast because I was going through your LinkedIn profile and you've got quite the bio that's going on there. And you have quite the background on renewable energy. So tell us, how you got it so involved and so interested in it.
Well, that's kind of a long story. I'll give you the short version because we don't have time for the whole thing. But,
Yeah.
look, I've been extremely fortunate in that I've been involved in renewables for, it's hard for me to say this out loud, but for 25 years now. My first job in wind energy was in January of 2000. And I've been super lucky because I've been involved in all kinds of aspects of the industry, from the financing, from starting companies, from selling companies, to the construction sides, to the operation and maintenance side. And I started back in '06. I started a company called One Wind, and
Right.
super lucky in that we started kind of at a good time as the industry was growing in this part of the world. And it was, started off as a little wind energy service company, one employee working out of the basement kind of thing. And over the course of a dozen years, we grew as the industry grew to become the largest independent renewable energy service provider doing wind and solar and storage and electric vehicle projects in Canada, with 240 employees and an office in Nova Scotia and an office in Texas. And so that they sold that company in 2020. That was a hell of a ride. I started a company with some friends in Nova Scotia that called Watts Wind, that was developing some community solar projects in the province. And we've done that, and these projects are spread out over Nova Scotia now, and are producing and paying dividends to over 300 Nova Scotians.
Oh, you mean wind, community wind.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Did I say solar?
Yeah. No, I was thinking solar. That's going on quite well too. But this is kind of the first of it. This was the first of its kind, was it, in Canada? The community wind.
You mean Watts Wind?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't the first. So it was one of the first. It was based on a program called the ComFit program at the time here in Nova Scotia, Community Feed-in Tariff. And the whole idea was to develop smaller wind energy projects on the distribution level of the grid that were owned by, these projects were developed and funded by investment from community members in the areas of where the projects existed. Great program.
Yeah.
And we started a little company around that concept called Watts Wind. And, the program eventually wound its way through here in the province, and it no longer exists. But it enabled a bunch of really cool Nova Scotia-based companies to become founded, and to grow around community-based wind energy projects.
Because I've seen the windmills, or the turbines, in various parts of the province, like Watt section on the eastern shore, and near Musquodoboit Harbor, on the eastern shore of Nova Scotia. And it's great to see they're still running today. So the company, or nothing really exists right now, but are they still operational? Are they still generating energy?
Yeah. So the way it works is those turbines were able to enter into contracts with Nova Scotia Power to sell the energy from those projects for 20 years.
Okay.
And so we're into I think we're in around year 13 now of some of those initial projects. And so you go out and you get funding from community members all over the province, and then you bring a bank on board, and then you finance these projects. You build them, you pay all the costs, and then you sell all of your energy for 20 years to Nova Scotia Power,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you pay your mortgage with the bank, and then what's left over is dividends to the community members.
Right. It's gravy. That's it. We were talking earlier, and you were saying how, wind, solar, storage, EVs, it's all part of the renewable energy equation. And I just want to know, what do you mean by this?
Yeah. So, look, the global transition to renewables, like I said, I've been doing this stuff for 25 years. I believe more than ever that the transition to renewables is unstoppable. The bus has left the station, and you have to either get on the bus or get out of the way of the bus. That's what I believe. And it's because, fossil fuels are extremely good at what they do. High energy density, easy to transport, low cost. That's why the global industry has grown up around fossil fuels. So it's a tall order to replace that in the world. But renewables, wind energy, solar energy, and more recently and increasingly storage, other renewable technologies like hydro, wave
Nuclear.
technology, tidal technology, geothermal technology, in and of themselves, they're not able to solve the problem. They can't do what fossil fuels can do.
Right.
But if you combine those technologies in different ways in different parts of the world, then all of a sudden you're starting to develop something that is dispatchable. So, it's not always sunny. The sun goes down every night. It's not always windy. But if you start to combine these technologies with solar, then okay, you can start to do the job that fossil fuels do. And the exciting thing about it is, I've been around long enough to see this, where in the early days, wind energy was seen as very expensive energy. But over the course of 10 years, the cost came to scale. More and more were deployed. The technology got better. The cost came down to sort of 80% cheaper than it started with. Then a couple of years later, solar started doing the same thing. Solar in the last 10 years has gone down about 90% in terms of cost, right? And right now, storage technologies, and there's a whole host of different kinds of them. The dominant one right now, one is lithium-ion batteries.
Right.
That's following the same trajectory right now. So when you get to the point where combinations of renewables plus storage can do the job technically of fossil fuels, but are also lower cost than fossil fuels, then the business case for fossil fuels goes away.
Yeah, it does. And from previous guests, everyone has said the same thing. There isn't one magical answer for renewable energy. They all have to rely on each other. And eventually the price will come down. The technology will get better, faster, stronger, and will beat out fossil fuels. It just won't make any sense. Yeah, I love that.
Happening.
Well, I've been reading a lot about perovskite. Perovskite? Which is like, this is just blowing things off the chart. It's really innovative. And tell me a little bit, because I know that you're a little bit behind the scenes on that.
Yeah, so Rayleigh Solar Tech most recently, Rayleigh Solar Tech is a company based in Nova Scotia that is working on the next generation of solar based on perovskites. And after I sold One Wind back in 2020. The guys at Rayleigh, Rayleigh was founded by a guy named Dr. Sam March, who's doing his PhD research at Dell, and Dane George, an engineer from Dell. And they've been working on the potential of perovskites for solar applications. And they were raising some money. So they invited me to invest. When you sell your company, people think you have lots of money. So they asked me if I wanted to invest. And so I was interested in it. I'd been following it a little bit. But the more I talked to them, the more I asked as hard questions as I could think of at the time on perovskites. But the more I learned about the technology, the more I learned about the team and what they had accomplished, the more interested I got. And the conversation kind of changed around to me joining as CEO, which I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I did invest. And so basically what perovskites are is it's a crystalline structure. It's a mineral that exists in the natural world. It was, I think, discovered in the 1800s by a Russian scientist,
That's where the
Perovskite.
name probably came
Yeah,
from. Yeah.
that's where the name came from. But the exciting thing about it is you can take that crystalline structure that exists naturally and you can synthesize it in the lab. And it's a bunch of chemicals that if you put them together in exactly the right ways and exactly the right combination of chemicals, you can create a solar ink. And it's basically, it's a liquid. And the exciting thing about the solar ink is it exhibits a lot of the same properties as silicon solar panels that you see on roofs and in
Right.
fields all over the world today. But it starts its life as an ink. So because it's an ink, you can take that and you can coat different things. So you can coat a glass panel to make it look and feel and just like an existing solar panel. And that's cool because you can piggyback on all the existing technology of inverters and connectors and all frames and the glass and the backsheet, all the stuff that exists for silicon solar. Right. You can use all that. But the other exciting thing about it is you can also coat it on a sheet of flexible plastic. So super thin.
Yeah, but how thin? How thick does it need to be? Is it the thicker the better, or
No,
or does it matter?
As thin as think about a tarp. You know, a tarp that you would cover something in.
Okay, yeah.
Sort of that thin, that flexible, a sheet of plastic, right? And what Rayleigh has been able to do is really work over the last 5 or 6 years on refining that technology, advancing that technology, such that all the many different parameters they've solved for it, such that they can coat this ink on a long roll of plastic. It then goes through a curing process and it crystallizes, and then that can be used to shape different surfaces. Wow. The other super exciting thing about it is it's a completely different technology than existing silicon solar. It's much lower energy intensive process to manufacture. The equipment to manufacture it is much lower cost, and the energy input required to manufacture it is much lower. To create silicon solar panels, it's a long and complex process.
Yeah, you need rackets, you need everything.
You have to use temperatures of 1200 degrees to purify that silicon and grow the crystals. With perovskites, you're dealing in temperatures of primarily room temperatures to create the ink, and then the curing process on the substrate is sort of around 140 degrees. So much lower cost.
Yeah.
So much lower cost and much larger range of applications.
Does it heat up to a certain like if you touch it? Does it heat up? Will it will it burn your hand if you put your hand on it?
Not at all.
It keeps cool.
No.
What about?
You have to heat it to cure it.
Right.
But then once it cures, it cools. Then it's a solar panel.
Then it's fine. Like when the sun's on it for a long time, imagine it would get warm. But and it's black. Does it have to be black? Could it be any color application it wants to be?
No, it can be different colors. Yeah. And in fact, it can be transparent.
What?
Yeah.
That's so cool. Like office buildings kind of thing.
Wow. Absolutely. That's a version of perovskite technology.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I can just think. My other question is in terms of size, like how much of a perovskite, how much? Yeah, there you go. How much do you need of this to like power a house or power?
Okay, good question. Yeah, that's a good question. So the thing about perovskites, and it's incredible how quickly, and if you do a little bit of research on the internet, you'll see how much activity there is around perovskites these days. Over the last, even since I was involved, 3.5 years, the advances in the technology. So it started off 3 or 4 years ago. Perovskites were very promising, but kind of low efficiency. So they weren't able to do as good of a job as converting sun into electricity as established silicon solar panels are. So silicon solar panels are somewhere around 21%. Some of them are easing up to 19, 20, 21%. Some of them getting a little higher. Perovskites started off down around like 3 or 4%.
Hmm.
over the last years, and Rayleigh's done a very good job of this. They've been able to, through a lot of hard work, gradually start increasing that efficiency up to the 16, 17, 18. It's getting competitive with silicon solar, much cheaper to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that Rayleigh's been able to do is work on, so the three things that make a technology like this successful. One is it has to be efficient, has to be good at converting sunlight into electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it has got to be durable. It's got to be, so solar panels last 20 or 25 years. Early days of Perovskites, they would break down very quickly. You couldn't guarantee that they would last a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Rayleigh's been able to do interlayers and a bunch of things, sciencey things, to really increase that durability and to start to the point where Perovskites, it's becoming not a question anymore about the lifespan of the thing. And then the third thing, of course, is cost. And they started off much higher cost than silicons. That cost is coming down now.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's really cool. Now, you touched upon, Rayleigh Solar Tech. What kind of projects are you working on? You're no longer the CEO. I know there's a great team involved.
Yeah.
A lot of people behind this company doing great things.
Yeah, so some exciting news, Rayleigh. So I stepped away as CEO just about a month ago, not even a month ago now, because we had been successful in doing a financing raise. We were able to attract the interest and a financing of about $22 million from a US-based company that I'm not allowed to say who it is yet because this is very new, but very strategic. Some of, when the announcement comes out, you'll see it's some of the most recognizable technology entrepreneurs on the planet have invested in Rayleigh, and they've invested $22 million. So the next stage for Rayleigh, they all came from California, and we had all these meetings, and we went to dinners, and we had intense technical sessions and intense commercial sessions, as we were closing this deal. And at one point I kind of said, okay, these guys are coming in and they have got what we need in terms of financial capability, but also technical and experience and connections to take Rayleigh to the next level, which is a global manufacturer. And they don't need me. They don't. I was super happy to have helped Rayleigh get from a startup from the university to sort of a real company with, goals and progress in the technology and, equipment and offices and a lab and a facility and, 20, 30 people, to the point where this investment group would come in. And so I took the opportunity to step away as CEO. Yeah. But the next couple of years, and they're going to be still based here in Halifax. The next couple of years is going to see this company become a global leader in this technology and to start to manufacture at a global level.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations to all of you. That's a lot of hard work. Now, just imagine, you were 16 years old, which is just, 10 years ago for you, I guess. You were looking
roughly, with rounding. Yeah.
You're looking about, think about you were 16 and you're in high school. You're thinking about a career in new renewables. What direction would you go? Or what recommendation would you say to somebody who was 16 years old? I think you should focus on this.
Well, there's such a wide range of possibilities in renewables these days. I think generally, if you've got an aptitude for science, technology, math, if you're interested in that, there is lots of opportunity in renewables. So let's talk about the life cycle of a project. At the early stages, there's an engineering component. So you've got to do environmental studies. You've got to do engineering on the foundations. You've got to do engineering on the roads. There's a mechanical component. So there's room for the early stages for engineers. So if you want to do an engineering degree, you can for sure get in the.
That's a good foundation. That's probably a good base, would you say?
Yeah. And then go into the construction and there's all kinds of jobs in construction. And then on the operation and maintenance side of things, there's a mechanical component, there's an electrical component,
Mm.
So if you are, so for example, with a wind turbine, if you've got a mechanical aptitude, there are wind turbine technician programs in Canada and in the US that are quite good, that will prepare you for wind energy technology.
Hmm.
So lots of opportunity there. If your aptitude is not on the engineering side, but work with your hands, technical side, lots of opportunities there. For solar and battery storage projects, it's more electrical. So there are electricians working on these kinds of projects, there are electrical technicians working on these projects, and there are electrical engineers working on these projects. So there's a wide range. What I
Yeah.
would say is if you've got a technical aptitude, whether it's the engineering side or the technology technician side, find the school. There will be opportunities for you.
That's great. I know that you stepped away from Rayleigh, and you're probably taking a little bit of a break right now, or maybe not. But so, what does 2025 and the following years, what's your future look like? What's
Good
Paul
question.
Pynn going to be up to?
Good question. I would love for you to answer that. No, I don't know. I know it's going to be in renewables.
Yep.
Something always comes along. I'm excited about whatever the next thing's going to be. I will say I'm spending more money. We did a couple of years ago start another wind energy development company called Stevens Wind, and last year we were successful in getting some power purchase agreements for some large wind energy projects, one at Higgins Mountain and one at Wedgeport in the province.
Right.
And so we'll be building those out over the next 2 to 3 years. So I'll be spending some more time on those. I haven't been able to focus on them because of Rayleigh in the last few years, but I'll spend some more time on that. But there's an awesome team in place to do that. So I'll just be getting in their way, basically.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. I know it's going to be fun, and I don't know what it's going to look like yet, but I'm sure it'll be something will come along.
Well, thank you, Paul, for joining me today. It's been delightful talking to you, and I'm sure we'll probably be bumping into each other again. And all the best. It's great. Happy New Year.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a great conversation. Love to do it again.
I'm just blown away by the future applications of Perovskite. It's technology like this that makes me love hosting this podcast. By the way, this podcast is sponsored by the province of Nova Scotia and also the Smart Energy event. I'm your host, Maria McGowan. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you next time.